Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Rockies Daily. I'm your host, Scott Ayers, where we are talking all things Colorado Rockies. And folks, the Colorado Rockies are back. The Rockies are back. All it took was a take on the other worst team in baseball, play the Giants in a series before, who could also be considered one of the worst teams in baseball. And just like that, the Rockies have now won 4 out of their last 5 games. They're back, baby. Colorado Rockies won 8-2. I'm recording like 2-3 minutes after the game has been completed. We're going to do a game recap. Segment 3 is honestly going to be a fun one just because we talk a little bit more about the trade deadline that's coming up in about 2 months. It's not too early to prepare. And so we're going to just be talking about what does it look like to make a potential offer? We look at a couple teams in the AL that the Rockies could look to deal with and talking about the overall just possibilities because we have heard a ton. Hey, the Rockies are going to be they're going to be dealing at the deadline. The question is, who are they going to be dealing? We'll get to that. Let's quickly, though, talk about this game where the Rockies win once again in a game where they score 8 runs once again, and they win this game 8-2. They have 12 hits in this game. Really encouraging. They are starting to find a little bit of power in this stretch. And you hope that carries on, right? Because they've got the Brewers, they've got the Cubs, they've got some tough series up ahead. And so take advantage of these series where you can get your bats to get hot. Hunter Goodman continues to stay hot. He has a bomb in this one. Really, the biggest one is obviously Willie Castro hitting a 3-run bomb. That just feels good because Castro obviously hasn't had a ton of power this year. He goes 1 for 5 in this game, but an extremely impactful 1 for 5 game. TJ Rumfield has... So Willie Castro has probably the most impactful home run. TJ Rumfield has probably the strangest home run. It's about 5 feet short of the wall. And Joe Adell, who's had a game where he robbed 3 home runs, right? Like, it had to be one of the craziest things in MLB history. Well, he returns the favor of, I guess, pulling a Pele, a Messi, you name the insert soccer player here. That's who he pulled because he bonks one off his head over the wall to give TJ Rumfield a bomb. And that's the last time the Rockies scored. The Rockies score all 8 of their runs in their first 4 innings, but they didn't need any other support. Tomoyuki Sagano goes 5, gives up 2 in 96 with 96 pitches. Wasn't a crazy outing, but look, he was efficient enough. And if the starting pitching can be efficient enough, that might be good enough for the Rockies to pull out games like this, where the lineup can just do the majority of the heavy lifting. But look, still being able to go 5 innings is important for a rotation that can struggle to even get into the 6th. You would have liked to see him go a little bit deeper, but look, 96 pitches, you're just not going to start the 6th. But look, TJ Shook, we talked about him yesterday. Opportunity to make an MLB debut. He makes his debut in the 8th inning in this one. And just gives up a hit, no earned runs. And Juan Mejia takes care of business, gives up just 1 hit, 16 pitches, but closes the door. And a door that was essentially closed by the time he took the mound in the 9th inning. But a really, really solid win once again for the Colorado Rockies. And you will take these wins. These are the series you have to win when you are one of the worst teams in baseball. You have to take advantage when you play teams that are quite literally at your level or worse. I would argue the Angels are worse than the Rockies. They just get the benefit of the doubt of not playing in the NL West. And so just like that, the Rockies have a better record than the Angels. 1 win better, but It's important for the Rockies to continue to have this momentum. And they've had a few guys that have shown really solid momentum. And the first we'll talk about is Sugano. And look, he's not a darling by any means. You look at some of his advanced metrics, and it's obviously not overly favorable to him. But you know what? You're gonna take what he's been able to provide. So I'm obviously get off the advanced metrics right now, because look, he has a 3.98 ERA. He's got a 1.25 WHIP, and really, you look at his slate of starts, and he has two that are really bad that stick out. He's got a start against the Phillies and a start against the Dodgers. He gives up 5 earned in both of those. The rest of the way, though, he's been at the very least okay, if not just good. This performance against the Angels, you might not say it was a great performance, but you'd say, hey, that's good enough. And I think the biggest thing is he came into the season, I would say, with the least amount of maybe expectations from Rockies fans, just because of how difficult of a 2025 he had. So the fact that we're in this position where you look at him and you look at what he's been able to provide, and you say, hey, he's been the Rockies' best starting pitcher, you would be very surprised. I am very surprised by that, because he really struggled with the Orioles. And then he came into a ballpark that is absolutely not pitchers friendly. And he's made it work. And I think the hope for all of us is that just in the next month, just continue to be efficient enough, continue to be good enough to keep that ERA. If he can keep that ERA under 4, he becomes a prime target for the Rockies to be able to trade. Now, he's not going to bring you wonders and splendor and all this, but he is going to give you maybe something in return, which is more than nothing, more than what you would have had if you didn't sign him in the offseason. So really, really solid so far from him. And then, of course, it's Jake McCarthy. We talk about Sugano from the pitching staff. Have to talk about Jake McCarthy, who has become, one of the best bats in this Rockies lineup. And, since May 1st, he has 4 home runs, 18 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. He's batting 300, 600 slugging. And overall, he's got the second best batting average. He's third best slugging, fourth best strikeout rate on the team, first in team in stolen bases, fourth in RBIs. There's only 8 guys on the whole team that have a positive WAR. He's one of those 8 with a .7 WAR, wins above replacement. And so, once again, him and Sugano both come into this offseason lacking the hype and prestige that you typically would get from a free agent or someone you get from a trade. Now, Sugano has the international hype. That is completely real and completely relevant. But in terms of for the Rockies fan base and the expectations we had of these guys, they were low. And both of these guys have greatly exceeded expectations. Both of these guys have played great baseball at times. I would argue Jake McCarthy's played great baseball really since May 1st. Actually beyond that. Actually Christian Says of DNVR, I apologize if I mispronounce his last name, but of DNVR also put out a tweet since April 19th. He's slashed 324, 356, and a 537 slugging. He's been so good, and he was good again tonight. He goes 2 for 5. His batting average is up to 291. There's not enough good things to say about Jake McCarthy and what he's been able to provide for the Colorado Rockies. That being said, the trade deadline's 2 months away. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, you look online the Colorado Rockies are going to be with the Tigers and the Red Sox. They're all going to be dealers. And they're mentioning Skubal and, some of these primetime names. But the question is for the Rockies, who is it that they will be able to deal at the deadline, right? Like some of these teams have prominent stars, prominent superstars that will yield an awesome return. And for the Colorado Rockies, and something that I've mentioned on this show, the cabinets are a little bit bare. That war chest, not too many tokens in there. Not many gold bars, to say the least. And so the Rockies, although they will be dealing at the deadline, the question is who, and will it be worth it? What is the worth? What is the value, and what are teams just going to be willing to offer? And who do you want to hold on to? Who are you tagging? Because, teams probably aren't going to be targeting Tovar because Tovar, hey, that's a staple of our team. But if someone gives you an offer, how much are you willing to take before you give them away? And that's not who we're going to talk about. We're talking about guys who would be on the trade block that would actually make sense to deal. You obviously have Sugano. Probably, teams are looking for pitching at the deadline. He's your only starting pitcher that you would probably consider. You probably are going to look to keep Feltner, Dollander, and Gordon. Now, if the opportunity presents itself, I would not hesitate to trade Ryan Feltner or Tanner Gordon if you could get a solid return. Like, I don't think those guys are untouchable. I would be more inclined to maybe, I would be fine if they could yield a really good prospect in return. I would be okay with making a trade for one of those two guys. Feltner has been a bit more productive in his time, though, so that's where I would say I'd be maybe more reluctant to hold him. But look, there's probably not going to be many offers for him right now, anyways. But you really just you look at Dollander as the only guy where, hey, we want to keep you. Lorenzen, Quintana, Freeland, there's just not going to be an offer. Quintana, I think, had an opportunity. He gets hurt. No one's going to be making a trade for him. Okay, that's fine. So you look at Sugano's maybe the only starting pitcher, maybe Tanner Gordon, right? Like if he can figure it out a little, he's young enough. Maybe you can get a younger prospect. I don't know. Antonio Senzatella is obviously this really golden reliever because he can give you 2, 3, 4 innings out of the pen. And he's been so good, right? Like an under 2 ERA. He's been awesome. But his contract is just so bad right now that the Rockies, if you want to try to get a good prospect in return, you'd almost have to give some cash to help cover that contract just because of how unfavorable it is. So that is something to note. But Senzatella is obviously a great option because of how strong he's been this year. Offensively, that's where it gets a little weird. Do you consider Moniak? Do you consider McCarthy? Brenton Doyle? Do you look at Johnson, possibly? I don't know. Offensively, I think we might all feel a little bit more attached to some of these guys, especially Troy Johnson, who's the newcomer, just because it's like he's talking about Rockies baseball. It's like, dang, I kind of like this. But not only that, he's just been so productive at the plate. But then that could create the argument of, well, hey, no, that would be someone that we want to be able to keep. So, and with all that, with all these names, then the question is, well, what can these names get you? And what is a return that would make sense, and what a team would be willing to offer? And that's the hardest thing, is none of these guys are probably going to get you a top prospect. And I might have to do something here soon. I have water next to me. My throat all of a sudden has just gone out. So if I take a giant swig of water mid-show, I apologize. But we're going to try to get through it. But look, I looked at a couple different teams that are going to be competing for the playoffs that might be buyers at the deadline. Looked at the Chicago White Sox, who've had a surprisingly awesome season so far. And I looked at the Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay Rays are in a tightly contested battle in the AL East. These are teams that have prospects that they would be willing to trade. And what does that actually look like? What does that actually look like to get for the Rockies? Okay, this is real time right here. A little ASMR for you. I know we do it all here on Rockies Daily. Talk to you. I talk ball with you. I give you a little sounds of a river going down my gullet. And we're back to talking baseball. Now, look, Chicago White Sox and Tampa Bay Rays have some really, really, really good prospects. I don't know if the Rockies could get them. For the White Sox, they have this golden egg. They have Hagen Smith. He's a top lefty pitching prospect. But the problem is, and one thing to note as well before we get into it, there's a lot of different ways to try to value prospects and players. I personally use something called Baseball Trade Simulator online. It's like a $25 a year subscription. And at the very least can give you a baseline of some ideas of what it would cost for specific trades. So, look, not sponsored by them. No sponsorships on this show. So I know brands, right? Besides the point. But it's a nice baseline to have for me as you look through some of these trade options. So that's what I was doing before the show. But look, for Hagen Smith, that's a deal that if you want to try to get top prospect like that, you're going to be having to give up Senzatella. You're going to have to give up Mickey Moniak. And you might even have to give up like Tanner Gordon or something else. And that's where it's like, is it worth it for the Rockies? These trading all those guys for an asset and an offer that the White Sox might look at and laugh at you and hang up. That's the kind of value we're talking about right now for the Rockies. There's just nothing that is potent enough to bring in any of these top prospects. It'd be the same for the Rays, who also have Brody Hopkins, who's also a really top-end prospect, right-hand pitcher, can top out 100 miles an hour with his fastball. And once again, you're looking at guys that just might be unattainable. So the point of talking about these guys is it hopefully just sets into perspective that unless, when Moniak comes back, he's able to just bump the crap out of that slugging and continue to mash, just add more and more value. That is really the hope for some of these guys. Add a ton of the value so you even have an opportunity at these top prospects. More than likely, though, you're probably going to be looking at maybe some lesser prospects as an opportunity to try and acquire. There are pros and cons to both. Paying a lot for a top prospect means you're probably getting someone in return who's going to be pretty impactful for your organization or has an expectation to. Trade for some of these lesser prospects, you just don't necessarily know what you're getting, right? Like for the Rays, Santiago Suarez, Double-A pitcher, really good control, really nice command, doesn't have top-end velocity. But what that means, you're probably only giving up one of those names I mentioned. Maybe it's a 2-for-1, right? Like you're not giving up nearly as much. You're bringing in a prospect that can help your organization, but he's not currently at that developed stage where he is going to be a world beater. And so that is just all about how this will go for the Rocks. And and we could be surprised, right? Like, I'm talking about this, but you see in all sports, like, teams make trades that genuinely shock fans. The NBA is a great example just because we just recently saw a couple trades that just shocked us. You look at like the Luka trade for Anthony Davis, and you're like, who is dumb enough to do that? The problem is in the MLB, the Colorado Rockies have sometimes been seen as that team that was with an old front office, old GM. I get it, but another key in all this is just the Rockies cannot be taken advantage of. And I think for the first time, and I don't know how long, I truly believe that they won't. I feel really confident that this front office will be very smart and very wise in how they navigate through this deadline. And ultimately, maybe there's a world where they don't deal anyone, and that's just because we've got this impending lockout that feels like I've mentioned before. A dark cloud is just hovering over us, and we don't know when the lightning's going to strike. We don't know if it's hail, if it's a light rain, or if there's a tornado sweeping us all up. Okay, that's the cloud that we're looking at. And I might keep this short and talk maybe more about this in tomorrow's show as well. But look, the MLBPA had a response to the MLB's offer. Bruce Meyer, and ultimately had a lot to say that we just refuse to have a salary cap. And he said, we are ready to listen if the MLBPA wants to count. MLB said we are ready to listen if the MLB wants to counter our proposal at the bargaining table. But Bruce Meyer had made a comment of just this was a disingenuous offer, and we feel like we're slapped in the face. And that's where the MLB had said, well, hey, make a counter offer. And yeah, it's a very, very interesting time for Major League Baseball with the steam that we have and or the momentum that we have that's picking up steam. You see what I did? And it just feels like these two sides are on opposite ballparks. Bruce Meyer also said it could be a $500 million pay cut for the players. It's funny he said this, though, and you see online a lot of people trying to disprove that. And really, you go anywhere online, and you just see, like, it really depends on where on the internet you want to go. And you will see, like, literally just on your thread, one thing you agree with, one thing you disagree with, maybe you agree with both. And that example, it's such a small world example, but it just kind of starts to paint the picture that you can be scrolling your timeline and you're seeing people argue with each other that are not arguing in the same thread, right? Like they're just talking about the other person as if they're not in the room. So it's a very interesting time just because, as I mentioned, most of the time, a lot of us would say, why would I ever want to back the owners? Why would that even make remote sense? And the owners have made an aggressive enough offer that some fans say, hey, actually, maybe it's the MLBPA that needs to kind of come to the table. And this was the quote that Myers said, that it was effectively managed to cobble together the worst system for players in any major sport, and it's not even close. That was a quote I was looking for from Bob Meyer. And ultimately, if there's a cap and a floor, the players that are hurt the most are like the Kyle Tuckers that get a crazy, stupid contract to be like the 7th best player on the Dodgers. I think a lot of guys that are making like $780,000, $1 million, $2 million, they're all going to get pay raises, and they're all going to actually probably getting paid more. But it's just hard because, we're all saying like this is what should happen, but we don't actually know what will happen. And ultimately, here's the human side of it for myself. Probably anyone who's watched this show, which, hey, we're at 200 subs. Shout out. Could drop a sub, though, because of that water gurgle session I had. That's on me. And if you made it this far in the episode, thank you for watching. But there's the human element that I think I would want to talk about maybe at the start of next show as well, just to put an emphasis on it. We're talking about guys who are making like hundreds of millions of dollars and owners that are worth hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. I think it's hard for us to kind of care, right? Like if Kyle Tucker's not making 200 million, he's making 160 million. You think I'm going to be like, damn, dude, I wish Kyle Tucker had 200 extra or 40 extra $million. Like, no. Like, now, if we're talking about the AA, the AAA, the single A, maybe those guys that are trying to make it into the league or the really low contract guys, like, of course, like, hey, dude, you're creating a huge entertainment value. Like, go get yours. I get it. But I think the human element of a lot of us kind of in this one boat, regardless of what you're making, like we're in this one boat of we're not making $100 million, right? Like these players are making more money than the 200 subs of Rockies Daily. All of us combined, our lifetime net worth is probably not sniffing Juan Soto. And so that's the kind of amount of money that we're talking about. So that is another element in this is at what point do the fans say like, bro, we don't care because you have $200 million in your pocket, in your bank account, and I have far, far less. I don't know. And that could also lead you to being against the owners too and saying, you guys are great. You get it. Like, it's not black and white. It is super gray. It will be gray probably until a deal is done. I just hope a deal can be made. And ultimately, I hope there can be a middle ground met so we can just have peace of mind and have baseball and watch the beautiful rise of our Colorado Rockies empire. And with that does it for another Rockies Daily. If you made it to this part of the show, bless your face. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.